Writing styles, background information. This lesson will help you understand how and why an author uses background information in their writing. You will have the opportunity to see how your language may use background information in stories. Stories should be interesting to read. Every story has a storyline. The storyline tells a series of events in chronological order and has a beginning, middle, and end. It is full of action verbs that moves the reader along the storyline. Occasionally, an author may take a break from the storyline to share something of interest. This break usually contains background information. An author may use background information for several reasons: to add interest to the story, to provide important historical or cultural information, to tell the reader or listener something very important. I have a story to tell you about John. Peter and John went on a hunting trip. They walked for hours through low bushes before they found 3 small animals. They killed, cleaned, and cooked the animals, then ate them for dinner. Peter and John made sure they arrived home while it was still light. This story has a beginning, middle, and end, and it is filled with action verbs. Here is the same story with added background information. Peter and John went on a hunting trip. Peter was the best hunter in the village. He once killed 10 large birds in one day. Peter is the son of Samuel, who is the son of Daniel, who was the greatest hunter of all times from his family. They walked for hours through low bushes before they found 3 small animals. They killed, cleaned, and cooked the animals in a large pot that they had brought along with them, then ate them for dinner. Peter and John made sure they arrived home while it was still light, because it was dangerous to travel in the dark. Here is the story with the background information highlighted. Sometimes background information adds interest to the story. The additional information about Peter, being the best hunter in the village, adds interest to the story by providing background information about Peter. How does your language present this type of added information to a story? Perhaps your language would describe Peter's skill as a hunter before the start of the story. Perhaps your language uses special words that alert the reader of background information added that may interrupt the storyline. Sometimes background information adds important cultural or historical information. The author pauses the storyline to add historical information about Peter's ancestry. Sometimes English uses parentheses to signal information set apart from the story. Other times, English speakers will say now before telling background information. For example, now Peter is the son of Samuel. A clue that this is background information is the verb is. Does your language have signals to indicate background information? You will want to use the signals of your language and not necessarily the signals of the source language when you translate historical information found in a storyline. Sometimes, an author may pause the storyline to add something that happened at an earlier point of the story. After telling that Peter and John had cooked the animals, the author pauses to tell the reader that they had brought the pot along with them on the trip. This was not explicitly stated before. In English, the phrase had brought shows that this is something that they did before they killed the animals. How does your language indicate when an author refers to something that happened at an earlier point in the story? An author will use background to tell the reader or listener something very important. The author of this story wants to make sure that the reader understands the importance of John and Peter arriving home while it was still light. He uses a sentence part that begins with because. Perhaps your language would state this information as a separate sentence or arrange the information in the sentence differently. Background information is important and should not be omitted for several reasons. It adds interest to the story, it provides important historical or cultural information, it tells the reader or listener something very important. To keep translations clear and natural, you will need to study the grammar of your language. Observe how your language presents background information in writings. Follow those same grammar rules when you translate.